الذي رفع السماوات بغير عمد ترونها.
And here we are. And there is just going to be more than the two of us. This is the first debate on the Culture Catz channel, and it's something very different. You know, I never come out on my channel and say, oh, I'm an atheist or I'm a believer, because it don't matter. It doesn't matter what my thoughts are. But anyway, the next guest is, you may have seen me speaking to this man before. It's Mr. Howard George Stirrup. Right, Howard, so before we talk about the rules of the debate, which slightly different format for tonight, can you just tell us about yourself for those that don't know you?
Sure. My name's Howard George Stirrup. I've been doing activism for the last 5.5, 6 years, because I'm convinced that the globe model is erroneous and that space exploration is a scam. I offered 10,000 euros on national Spanish television for somebody to prove me wrong with half of the expected curvature for the said distance over water. And nobody was able to prove me wrong in 3 years that I held the offer. So I started doing face-to-face activism with flyers, and I've started doing debates because I'm quite confident that we should all be globe skeptics.
Cool. And I think a lot of people know and have seen the debates, and perhaps even the debates we've had as well. Now, does that work?
Yeah, I can work with that.
Here we go.
Okay, to start with, I'd like everyone to just look at Surah 14:52, where it says that anybody can understand the Quran because it's written clearly. And then the next surah is 13:3, where we can see that he's spread out the earth. He hasn't clustered it up into a ball, but spread it out. The same as Surah 15:19. As for the earth, we spread it out. So that pretty much says that it's spread out level, maybe even flat. Definitely not a globe. In Surah Nuh, which is 71:15-20, we can see that Allah has also created 7 heavens, one upon another, and he's made the moon a light, not just a rock reflecting sunlight, but its own light. And also Surah 79:27-33, we can see that we are not as difficult to create as the heaven, and it is constructed it high, flawlessly, and the earth has been flattened for life. In Surah 88:17-20, we can also see that the earth has been leveled out, not rounded up. So it's spread, it's leveled. Let's have a look at some more. The next one we've got would be Surah 91, number 1-10, where he talks about the sun and that the moon follows him. And it speaks about the moon as feminine, which we also know that females have their menstrual cycles in line with the moon. And we talk about the firmament, which doesn't make sense on a globe model. Surah 21:30, have those that don't disbelieve considered that the heaven and the earth were a joined entity and that they were separated, like the Bible says, waters from the below and waters from above, and that the sun and moon are swimming. So when we look at the scientific experiment, star in a jar, when we look at the Egyptians' depiction of holding water from above, from below, and the Bible, we also see that it matches the star in the jar experiment, like the Quran clearly says. And that we have a sky, well-protected canopy, but still people will turn away from their signs. And that there's pillars that hold up these heavens, that pillars that we don't see, which also matches the star in the jar experiment and the Bible and the Egyptians' depiction. Then we've got Surah 65:12, where again Allah created the 7 heavens and he sits above all, and his knowledge encompasses all things, which suggests that he's above the earth. And Surah 22:65, where it says that he holds back the heaven so that it should not fall down upon the earth, like the star in the jar experiment. Let there be light, the frequency keeping everything going. Surah 55:33, where he speaks about the jinn and mankind that cannot pass through the heavens. So is the Quran wrong, Ahmed? Or is NASA lying about going through the Van Allen belt and past Earth orbit? Also, Surah 25:53, where he's separated the two waters from the sweet and the bitter, and it is a petition that is forbidden to be passed. In Surah 31:10, the mountains are acting like wooden pegs, and water was sent down from the heaven, again suggesting the star in the jar experiment, and the earth is in the middle of the bubble. In Surah 13:2, Allah raised the heavens without any supports that you could see, like we're in a bubble, again the star in a jar, and he governs the entire order of things like a clock. In Surah 39:21, Allah sendeth down water from the heaven, which is talking about water from above, not clouds in the sky. And then we've got Surah 40:57. The creations of the heaven and earth is greater than the creation of mankind, but most of the people do not know, suggesting that earth might be more than a three-dimensional shape, but rather a 4D or a 5D or 7 heavens, 7D, 7-dimensional shape, which is why I'm not a flat earther, because neither the Bible or the Quran says flat, but it does say level, and it did say spread out. And it does talk about the heavens being constructed with strength, and that we as people are its expander, meaning that maybe the heavens grow as the earth grows. That wouldn't work on a ball. Surah 78:6 and 7 have also spoken about level lands. The earth is as a floor or as a bed. And again, that the mountains are as stakes and pegs holding earth level and stable. In Surah 13:3, he who spread the earth. And indeed, there are signs for people who give thought. So there are hints to how earth is, even if it doesn't specifically say a shape for us. Surah 2:29, it was he who created all that is on the earth for you. Then he turned to the sky and made the 7 heavens after, meaning the earth was first, just like in the Bible, the earth was before the sun. And then in Surah 41:12, we can see that he adorned the lowest heaven with lamps and set angels to guard them or to defend from the devils. Yet, if we were believing in balls of fire in space, that wouldn't make much sense. But if we're talking about the lamps that are in the firmament, as the Bible and the Quran clearly say, which we can see with modern cameras, especially when we look at Jupiter's moons, we adorned the lowest heaven with stars like lamps and made for them as missiles to deal with the devils. And you'll also see that the moonlight has been made to have stages of its lighting, like a female menstrual cycle, like I said before. And you'll see that we can use the moon and the sun to tell the time, because it's like a clock. The moon tells the moons and the sun tells the hour. And then we've got the stars telling the season, like a perfect clock. And we can see that the sun and the moon are swimming in an orbit in Surah 21:33. But it doesn't talk about the earth swimming or rotating, just the sun and the moon in their own orbit. Just like in Surah 39:5, he has subjected the sun and the moon to run their courses for an appointed time, subjected them to us, because earth seems to be geocentric, just like in Surah 36:38. But each in an orbit is swimming. Like I say, it doesn't talk about earth swimming, it talks about the celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, and the stars. moving around us, subjected to us, running its course for a specified term, like a perfect world clock. Now, everybody agrees that on the top of Mount Everest was once under the sea. However, many people do not associate these rocks and fossils with Noah's flood because they think there's not enough water to cover the highest mountain. Yet even NASA will admit that Mount Everest has got seashells and marine microorganisms on the very top. And just like Atlantis myths, we can see all around the world there's cities that are underwater. So a worldwide flood wouldn't make sense on a globe, but as we've just seen in the video, it would make sense on a level geocentric stationary Earth. And there is talk about Noah's flood in Surah 11, verse 44, Surah 23, 27, in which all people will be drowned. So this is a worldwide flood, not a local flood. Just like we can see in the next Surah, 71, 26 to 27, where it says, do not leave a single disbeliever on earth. So it's clearly a worldwide flood, which doesn't make sense on a globe. Yet we can see evidence on the top of Mount Everest. And when we go to the coastline or to along a riverbed, we can see that there's petrified organs all around. They're obviously petrified organs because each one, even the round ones, have got a convex side and a concave side because organs are lying on the other organs in bags of fascia. Yet the other pebbles are all shaped like a harp, which look like petrified hearts. So there's evidence of a worldwide flood on the coastline and in the riverbeds, as well as the top of Mount Everest. A worldwide flood doesn't make sense on a globe, but it does make sense in a star in a jar. Thank you very much.
Right. I'll stop showing. Thanks, that Howard. Really thoroughly prepared. And I've got to say, because of the nature of this debate, I've got no idea whether what you said was right or wrong there. Like, this could actually be the first debate where I think you win because I haven't got a clue what he's talking about. I'm really interested to see what Ahmed's response to that is. Look good to me. I've got absolutely no idea whether it was right or wrong. But thank you for that. For those who have just joined, by the way, before I pass you on to Finding Truth channel for his response, this isn't a debate on is the Earth flat or not. It's a debate on the Quran's take on the shape of the Earth and the solar system, etc. So what I'll do now, Howard, is I'll just put you on mute and myself on mute while Finding Truth has his 10 minutes. So do you need to screen share at any point, by the way, Finding Truth?
No, not really. I'll just speak. Maybe within our back and forth, I might choose to share some slides. But yeah,
no problem. Well, I'll give you. Howard was exactly 10 minutes, so I'll give you exactly 10 minutes starting now, sir.
Okay. So, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. That means peace be upon you all. Being a communications engineer gets you exposed to understand about physics, electromagnetics, makes studying cosmology pretty much fun, and opens up one's mind to what engineers do, which is to cause science to serve humanity. Now, when God, and his name in Arabic in Islam is Allah, sends a book down to humanity, the objective of the book is to be of utility to humanity. So number one, we need to understand what is the function of the Quran. The function of the Quran, like the function of the Torah and the Gospel, is to give humanity the service of guiding them through their lives. And guiding humanity through their life is like a threefold endeavor. Number one, they need to know their creator. Number two, so they know that there is a creator for this universe and they know his attributes. And number two, they know that he cares. So he didn't just like create the universe and forget about it, or he's not too busy to take care of us. And number three, because he exists and he cares, he sends to us guidance. And the reason he sends to us guidance is that we are here as the one creature on this planet, maybe the only one creature in this universe, or apart from jinn, who has free will. And we are here to use this free will to choose to do good or bad. So God cares about this creation, that we are here to do good or bad, and gives us the law. So the law becomes the measure for what is good and what is bad. So to serve the threefold endeavor, number one, God needs to show us that he exists and his attributes, show us that he cares, to know him and to find him, so we are receptive to his law. Now, God sends these messages thousands of years ago, if you talk about the Torah and the Gospel and the Quran, and humanity has obviously gone through a long sprint of development. Obviously, today we laugh at the kind of technology that was here in the 70s. People in the 70s laugh at what was there in the 20s. People in the 20s laugh at what was there in the 1900s, etc. So if you go to somebody in the early 1900s, 1901 or 1850, for example, and tell them, for example, that the most important governing laws of the universe are probabilistic, they will laugh at you. They will tell you that you do not understand science. And the reason is that Newtonian physics were very deterministic. So let's, for example, consider that a book like the Quran or the Bible comes down and says, guys, the laws of the universe are deterministic. Or otherwise says, guys, the laws of the universe are probabilistic. The latter being quantum mechanics view, the other one being Newtonian view. And this is part of revelation coming from God to Christians or to Jews or to Muslims. Then the consequence of that is that people at a specific age, for example, people who have understood and studied Newtonian mechanics, would be satisfied with a deterministic mechanical view of the universe. But once the science changes, these people will become heretics and will leave the religion, because now experimental evidence shows that the universe is not the way it was described in their holy book. So, given this problem, that a book like the Torah or the Gospels or the Quran needs to speak to people in the context of showing them that God exists and showing them how he cares about them. For example, he would tell them, look at how the earth is made easy for you to live on it. It's not like all rocky and mountainous. It has valleys. It is spread out. It's easy for you to live. But there are also mountains, and we are using those mountains to do that specific function. For example, to cause it to be stable, etc., etc. It needs to use very delicate language to the extent that it is consistent with observation. So if you come to somebody 14 years ago and tell him, look how much God cares for you. He has made the earth easy for you to live. It's like a bed. It's made, it's spread out for you. He can know and he can understand what you are talking about. And that is very relevant to the context that the Quran is easy to understand. It is here to guide humanity, regardless you are rich or poor, you are highly educated, you are a PhD in physics, or you are just a layman. But it will also use specific language so that to the extent that when science progresses, when we have people like Copernicus, when we have people like Galileo, when we have people like Muslim scientists who have theorized that the earth is round and that the earth and that the sun has an orbit and that there is curvature, and they did these experiments, these people remained Muslims. They looked into the Quran and they found other ayat that have implications that would lead them to find no contradiction between their religion and their scientific observations. So, for example, they would find another ayah, maybe that Howard did not mention, which says, for example, وَالْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ دَحَاهَا, and the earth after that, he dahaha. And the word dahaha is a very special word in Arabic because it means both of made it flat and also made it round, because the word dihya means egg, means bayda, okay, in Arabic, baitza in Hebrew, okay? So he is using a word where you can explain the act of making something flat or make it smooth and round like an egg. In one of the verses that even Howard has himself mentioned, it says, يا معشر الجن والإنس إن استطعتم أن تنفذوا من أقطار السماوات والأرض فانفذوا لا تنفذون إلا بسلطان. O people of the jinn and humans, if you can penetrate the diameters of the earth and the heavens, do it. You cannot do it except with authorization or except with power, because the word sultan has two meanings. And in this case, if I am looking at that at any point of time, I will, okay, it's a challenge that would people be able to reach the sky? But if I am looking at that today, I am thinking the diameters of the earth and the heavens, does that mean that the earth, the immediate sky over it, and the next heavens are like concentric in a way or another, consistent with a globe of earth and a spherical atmosphere, and then a solar system, and then a galaxy, and then a complete universe, etc.? Well, yes. So point is, many of the ayat that Howard has quoted, and maybe in the back and forth, I can actually address each and every one of them in sequence. We'll find very graceful and very natural understanding if we take what I have said in consideration. The Quran is a book of guidance. It wants to show people that God exists, and he is the one who has sent down
one minute left.
Yeah, he is the one who has sent down this book because he cares. It sometimes points people out to observations in nature to show them how God loves them and how God has given them many gifts. And while doing that, while referring to the natural world, it is using language that can be understood and appreciated 1400 years ago and today and 300 years later in the future as science advances. It uses things like the seven heavens, the earth, the protected sky, etc., which all of them I can give you very easy and very understandable explanations, whether under the layman language and the understanding 1400 years ago, or today, or maybe even in the future. I would like to keep this as generic as possible, and maybe in the back and forth I can go into the details of even every statement that Howard has said. And thank you.
And that is your 10 minutes, Bob. Thank you so much. Thank you also so much, DK. And now I'm going to be there's going to be the rebuttals now, and then the chat will get chance to ask questions, like I said before, based on the rebuttal. So make your questions based on what's been said. So I will present this to Howard in about 10 minutes when the rebuttals are done. But thank you very much for that. So maybe don't tag me into any of the questions until it's kind of getting to question time, because I'll lose them in the chat. Right. What am I doing? It's rebuttal time, isn't it? There we go. That's what I'm doing. It's rebuttal time. So Howard, I don't think we decided who was going to go first on the rebuttal, did we? Do you want to go first on the rebuttal, or who wants to go first on the rebuttal?
I would think that maybe Howard goes, so that we are going one by one. People will be bored if I go again. Maybe. Okay,
so Howard, you have just 5 minute rebuttal based on if you've got, if you want 5 minutes, just on what Ahmed has just said there.
I don't even mind if Howard wants that I go through some of his ayat in sequence and show him how they do not imply what he sees that they do, but I would rather that he can give, for example, a counter to what I've said, and I can undo the same now or later. I don't mind.
That sounds, we'll just do 5 minutes on that, and then we'll get into the back and forth with some questions in between. So Howard, you've got 5 minutes to address what Ahmed has said. Off you go, sir.
Okay. So My first question, Ahmed, is you call the devil Shaitan, yeah?
Yeah, shaitan. Yeah.
Would you agree, Shaitan, would you agree that he would cause us to sin with pride? I know in the Bible they talk about one of the 7 sins is pride. Does the Quran talk about the devil using our pride to cause us to sin because we think we know everything instead of being humble?
Guys, sorry to interrupt. Sorry, can I just check? Is this a rebuttal, or are we just going? I'll do whatever you guys want to do, but it feels like you've gone into the back and forth, which is fine if that's what you want to do. Did you want the rebuttal, Howard, or do you just want to get into the questioning? Whatever you want.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll steam through them, and then we can go back to them in the open dialogue.
Okay. Got 5 minutes. Then off you go, mate.
Okay. So my first point is that if the devil wanted us to believe that we know everything, it would make sense to give us models, calculations that match some of the observations we can make, and make us think that we can understand the function of Earth and the celestial bodies. And the globe model and the outer space model that we've been given by NASA, yes, everything adds up, but it kind of takes God out of the equation. Or if we do have a creator, we have to share that creator with an infinite universe of infinite numbers of planets where there's aliens and all sorts of life around the universe that's infinitely expanding. So even if we do have a creator, the creator's got to watch us from an infinite distance, and he's got to watch us, an infinite amount of other living beings on other planets in other galaxies. So it doesn't make us very special, doesn't make us very significant, and it doesn't really add up that the creator can hear, see, and be everywhere if everywhere's expanding. It makes us kind of watered down. It doesn't make our significance very strong. And also, I like that you've called your YouTube channel Finding Truth, because I'm hoping that you'll be willing to leave your religious beliefs of the globe and the expanding universe behind, and that you'll stick with what the Quran clearly says, and maybe with what the primary observations you can make instead of the theories that you've been told. Because my next question is number 3. Are there any observations that you can make yourself, Ahmed, that match the globe model? Apart from what we can see on the television and the magazines from NASA and SpaceX, are there any primary observations that you can make as an engineer that match the globe model? Because all the observations I've been making suggest that Earth could be flat, but it's definitely not curving 8 inches per mile squared, which is 20 centimeters for every 1.6 kilometers that you travel in distance squared, because it's not a straight diagonal dip, it's a curve that supposedly comes back round to itself. Because number 4, yes, scientists have theorized, but are they able to demonstrate any of these theories with primary observations that we can reproduce? Or are they all theories and calculations? Cool. Because just like the ostrich egg could be a misinterpretation, so could the theories that we believe in from NASA. Were NASA authorized to pass through the firmament? You said that we have to be authorized by the creator. So were NASA authorized, or are they lying? And lastly, the Quran says in Surah 14, verse 52, that the Quran is easy to understand and that we don't need to overcomplicate it. We just need to consider what it says clearly and then add it to the primary observations we can make. Or do we add what the Quran says to the theories and the calculations that other people have made that we can't verify? I think that we're supposed to test all things like the Bible says, and we're supposed to use what we can verify with what we can understand from what the Creator has given us in his guide. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Ahmed, you've got 5 minutes for your rebuttal, and then we'll go to questions from the chat. So if you start thinking about your questions now in the chat, but make sure, again, that they're based on what's been said in the opening. Otherwise, we'll skip over them and ask them at the end. So, Ahmed, you've got 5 minutes. Off you go, sir.
Okay, so thank you, Howard, for that. Actually, I have some fun time with the matter of whether the Earth is flat or not a few years ago, and just to let you know and to let the audience know, I'm talking scientifically now, not religiously. The model that the Earth is a disk with the sun something like I think 36,000 meters or kilometers, I cannot remember the exact numbers, away from it, and the moon is like, going horizontally around with the sun, etc., can produce observations and results on Earth that can be astonishingly similar to a model where the Earth is a globe with the sun 150 million kilometers away and so big, and the moon where it is, etc. Of course, in the other model, the sun is much, much smaller than in the globe Earth. Having said that, now to believe that the Earth is flat and there is no outer space, etc., or to believe the other way, the judgment would be an unequivocal observation. And for some funny reason, regardless that NASA has gone and other space agencies has gone into space exploration missions, they could have just turned one telescope back and took a single shot of planet Earth showing how it is a spherical globe. And for some reason, they don't. I don't know why. I find it very peculiar. However, having said that, I just want to make, I'm saying that because I don't want to pretend that I think that flat earthers are dumb or morons or whatever other people like to call them. Because if you think that flat earthers have no reason whatsoever to consider the model, then probably it is because you have a problem with the understanding of equivalent models in mathematics and physics. Okay, so it is actually the case from a mathematical perspective that one can put a mathematical model where the Earth is not a globe and the sun is much smaller than it is and it's much nearer than it is, and you can reach quite similar results to many observations that need the global Earth. Now, the point would be that you will have to believe in a huge global conspiracy, and there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people who are working in science and space exploration and space telescopes and Earth telescopes and putting satellites in orbit and so many things, that I think it is very difficult for such a conspiracy to exist and persist for such a long time. This is just I want to say. Now, on the other questions that you asked from the religious perspective and from the scientific perspective, I can show you in the back and forth that given what the Quran says and what the Bible says and what is actually the real observations of science that science explainers do not like to popularize, that we do not need to reach a conclusion that we are insignificant or not important or like a speck of dust swimming in the universe if we believe in a model where the Earth is a globe and the universe is as big as it is. To the contrary, and I would actually invite people to watch my 2 interviews with Dr. Hugh Ross, who is a Christian believer and an astronomer and a PhD in astronomy, and you will see that there are Muslim and Christian scientists who know both about religion and science and can show you that a globe and space and a huge universe model can lead to belief and faith, maybe more than a flat Earth and a kind of firmament model. I just want to say that, and I can go through that in very great detail in the back and forth.
And I think we're getting to that time now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say to the chat, now is the time to ask questions. And as long as your questions are about what's been said in the opening, they'll be answered. I might not understand if there are or not. So I'll present them to the guests, and they'll make the final decision on that. I just want to thank a couple of people. Jim, thank you so much for that. I hope the gig went well last night. It sounded from your comment like you were setting up. And but anyway, check Jim's band out. They're on a community post of mine. Go on the community post, scroll back. Really, really, really good. Fine lines. Okay. Thank you, Jim. First question I got in was for you, Howard. And it's here. It's coming up. It's coming up. It's coming up very soon. God, there's a lot of comments in this chat tonight. I've got to scroll past. There must be a quicker way. Here we go, Howard. So this is a question for you before the back and forth. If you think the Quran verifies your position of a flat earth, then are you a Muslim? And if not, why not? Oh, I've muted you. Sorry, let me unmute you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, yeah. So that one's for you, mate.
Awesome. So I've used biblical quotes and Quranic quotes. I've used artifacts from Egypt and also different myths and depictions all around the world as historical evidence that the ancient civilizations that knew how to write divinely inspired scripture and construct pyramids and temples all around the world, pyramids and temples that we still don't understand how they constructed them. They seem to understand that Earth was level, contained, geocentric, and that everything that we see up there is here for us. So, yes, I think the Quran, the Bible, the historical constructions that are still standing that are marvelous, and many of the artifacts like, astrolabes and stuff, and sundials that still work. And just the fact that we've got astrology with the 88 constellations all in the exact same position now as when they were depicted in the Dendora calendar of Egypt, and the Mayan and Aztec calendars were all carved in stone thousands of years ago. So I'm looking at historical evidence that matches the primary observations that we can still make now, the calculations and the predictions that we can still make now. And yes, the Quran, the Bible, the artifacts, the constructions, they are all definitely valid evidence to support that the Earth is not a globe and that it is geocentric, stationary, contained. And I'm not a flat earther, as Ahmed noticed. I'm a globe skeptic with an open mind. As I said in my presentation, the Earth could be much bigger than just this 3D interpretation that we have in our heads because of our limited perception. I am quite open to the idea that Earth could be a higher dimensional shape, like Seven Heavens suggest, maybe seventh dimensional.
Okay, thank you. Just looking, we are getting a lot of questions, but a lot of the questions seem to be about just flat Earth in general. And I'm quite happy to put those questions at the end of the show. But has anybody got anything that is literally based on the opening that either of the two guests have made? So anything specifically about the quotes from the Quran that were shown, or the opening that Ahmed made? I'll just give you 20 seconds to see if one of those comes in, and if not, we'll just go straight to the back and forth. So how do I get a comment? Oh, there we go. Right. Let's have a look. I don't think we have. There might be a bit of a delay, which is why one hasn't come in, but I don't think we've got anything directly based on the opening. So what we'll do is we will crack on. I think we said about a 40-minute back and forth. So I think you guys are going to be really civil with each other. So I can't see it being a dumpster fire or anything. So I can quite happily put myself on mute And take it away, guys, whoever wants to start.
Okay, so I would like to take some of the ayat or the verses that Howard has mentioned in his presentation and address them by one, because I think this is important. Number one, to him actually, because he said he would adopt an open mind on this. I can actually even offer you, Howard, why, in my opinion, there is this schism between what the scientific community wants to advocate, which is exactly what the atheist scientific community, actually, not the scientific community at large, what the atheist scientific community wants to advocate is that humanity is insignificant. This is just it. So the narrative is, since the universe is so big and Earth is so small and humanity is hence so small, and Earth has no specific special location or special identity or special configuration in the universe at large, then we cannot be special. But the Torah, the Gospels, and the Quran say that humanity is special to God, and God, the grandeur of the universe, cares about humanity. So humanity has to be logically special, and this will include that, for example, when the Quran mentions earth and the heavens, like earth on one part of the sentence and the whole of the heavens on the other part, it says something. Or the other verse that you and I have mentioned, from the diameters of the earth and the heavens. So there seems to be a relation. Earth cannot be in a random position in the heavens and the earth. So having said that, I would like to make it clear here that if someone is really aware of what cosmology is talking about, okay, you will not be, as somebody who understands science, purely understands science, know nothing about religion. Somebody who purely understands science and is honest and open about what science is saying really about planet Earth, its position in the universe, the special nature of this planet, the special nature of its star, the sun, the special nature of the place where the solar system is, the special nature of the galaxy where the solar system is, the special place of the cluster in which the galaxy, in which the solar system is, etc., etc. You cannot reach a position, given even a globe Earth and space and the universe as is talked about in the scientific community, you will not reach a position that Earth is insignificant. So I would just want to make this very, very clear, and I can actually expand on this so much. But I would like to expand on this given what the Quran also says, because this is what we are actually talking about. So I'm going to do this while addressing your points. So in your presentation...
Can I just ask you a quick question, Ahmed?
Go ahead.
Are you of the belief that we've only discovered 4 to 5% of what we class as outer space so far?
Okay, so we discovered, or we can observe 4 to 5% of the material of the universe, which is what we call all the visible mass and energy of the universe, because 96% almost of the universe is classified as dark matter and dark energy. So they are unobservable, okay? We know that they exist due to their effects on the other 4 to 5%. But if this is what you mean, it is not a belief. The scientific observation is that human equipment can only detect 4% of what constitutes the universe. This is the observation, yeah.
So it's a conclusion, it's a belief based on an observation that people have made. We can't make that observation ourselves. We have to believe what they tell us. And that is that we've only discovered 4 to 5% of the known universe. How can we judge how much we've discovered until we've discovered the whole? How can we know that we've only discovered 4 to 5% if we can't observe or travel the other 96%? Doesn't really make much sense to me. It seems like a guess, like an estimation, like a conclusion, a belief. But it doesn't seem like we know for sure, because to know for sure, you would have had to observe and traveled the whole 100%. To know the 100% is where you think it is, in my opinion. But I'd also just like to add that not only are we supposedly insignificant in the atheist space model that you believe in size, but just the timeline. Supposedly, humans have only been around for a few 100,000 years. In 13.8 billion years since the Big Bang. So for the creator to be sat there watching all the Earth and the different planets get formed over billions and billions of years, just so that our little time here, like you said, we're not centered, we're in a supposedly infinite expanding universe, so our position seems insignificant, our location, our size, and the time that we're supposedly here seems insignificant, a few 100,000 years over multiple billion years. So I don't agree with the time or the physical dimensions that we're being given, and I do believe that they are a belief, because nobody was here billions of years ago to measure this distance or time that you believe in. But okay, so you're entitled to your beliefs.
Yeah, I will give you a response to what you have said if you would like. So number one, okay, there are ways where you can, using the current measurements that we have, the measurement tools that we have, determine that we can actually observe only 4 to 5% of the universe. Now, the way scientific measurement works is that you don't need to go somewhere to do a measurement concerning that place. So, for example, you can go to, I don't know, a supermarket and buy a laser, you know those devices where you can put a laser at one wall and it will tell you how far the other wall is. And if you get a good one, you can actually measure the distance between the two ends of London or the two ends of New York or whatever, or actually even longer than that. And you don't have really to travel to the other side of New York or the other side of London or the other side of Cairo or whatever to confirm that. You just need to test the device and make sure that it works, and to understand the tolerance and the percentage of error that it produces to trust its next result, since you have tested that it works properly. Now, having said that, according to what I have understand from my field of study, the statement that we have discovered 4 to 5% of what constitutes the universe has some good standing. Having said that, I can also say that nowadays in the scientific community, there are other models that are struggling to try to replace the dark matter and dark energy paradigm. So this is the first point. The second point of what you have said, which is an important thing, which is an important philosophical question, and this is why I said, I see even some of the audience are commenting about it. I said the atheist model of space. Now, there is only one model of space, okay, that is in the scientific community. But there is an interpretation that is used by atheists, and there is an interpretation that is used by people who have other philosophical opinions. And in my opinion, the interpretations that are used by atheists are exclusionist interpretations. I mean that they intentionally look the other side when they consider the evidence. So I will just give this one example. If you ask a neutral scientist about the position of the Earth in the universe, I'm just asking this question. I would even like to see some interaction from the audience on this, and even maybe from Al or yourself. what is the position of Earth in the universe? Okay. Now, an atheist person will tell you the Earth is in a random position in the universe. It has no significance whatsoever. Now, a fair scientist will tell you, what do you mean by the universe? The first question has to be this: what do you mean by the universe? Now, if you define the universe as the observable universe, which is what we can see, because if you define it any other way, it becomes unscientific. So the observable universe is what we can see. And guess what? No scientist can deny in this case that Earth is in exactly the center of the universe. If you define, I'm saying it again, and I think this would be a fun discussion and a kind of shock to people. If you define the universe as the observable universe, as all what you can see, the Earth must be exactly in the center of the universe. And the reason is that light coming to us from all directions from the universe, and the farthest that we can see is something called the cosmic microwave background radiation, is coming to us from almost 96 billion light years away from all directions. So the universe is 96 point something billion light years across, and we are exactly in its center. Okay. Now, an atheist who will, number one, have a problem to acknowledge this issue, but when he is faced with it, cannot deny it, will tell you, but maybe we cannot see the rest of the universe since we are only seeing the observable universe. Then being in the middle is, like a catch-22. It has to be in the middle because we have spherical vision all over us. Now, then this will be against his own beliefs because as an atheist who advocates scientism, you cannot believe in a universe that you cannot see. So you have to acknowledge that the universe is the observable universe, and then you have to acknowledge that Earth is in the middle of exactly in the center of the observable universe. Now I will go to the ayah in the Quran.
Can I just get Howard to respond on that point? I think that was a good point. So basically, you are in the center of your own field of view.
So
before we move on, can I get Howard to respond on that bit? Is that okay?
Absolutely. I just want to tie it to the ayah. So I'm going to say a scientific fact and tie it to the verse of the Quran. Okay? Yeah? Mm-hmm. So I will go back to the verse of the Quran that you have mentioned and I have mentioned in my opening statement, which is يَا مَعْشَرَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ إِنِ اسْتَطَعْتُمْ أَن تَنْفُذُوا مِنْ أَقْطَارِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ فَانْفُذُوا لَا تَنْفُذُونَ إِلَّا سُلْطَانٍ. O people of the jinn and the humans, if you can penetrate the diameters of the earth and the universe, go ahead and penetrate it. You cannot do that except with an authorization. Now, this verse today, in the year 2022, where we have the James Webb, etc., where we're looking to deep space. Now, when we consider what I have just said, that given the observable universe, the Earth has to be in the middle of the observable universe, and hence the diameter of the Earth and the diameter of the observable universe have to be coincident. So the center of the Earth is the center of the observable universe. The diameter of the Earth will be a partial diameter of the diameter of the whole universe, if the universe was at all spherical. Because there are other models that, for example, are saying that the universe is a toroid. Okay? And when you go, for example, to a hadith, okay, that talks about this universe, it says that the universe that we live in, as-sama ad-dunya, is in the second, the universe that you live in, the sky that we live in the next heaven is like a halaqa, a ring in a desert. And the second one, in the third one, is like a ring in a desert, etc. So as if it is talking about concentric levels of heavens inside each other. Now, this is an example.
Can I just, sorry, Simon, I really don't mean to. I just feel like we're getting lots and lots of points in.
Sure.
But I want to hear Howard kind of respond.
I would stop at that point.
Howard, take as long as you want, but I know you've been making notes and stuff on those. And then I do want to hear the rest of what you've got to say there, Ahmed. But
sure.
Yeah, let's get Howard to respond to some of those. Off you go there.
Yeah. I'm very interested in hearing the hadith that talks about the toroid, the torus field shape, because I think that's probably closer to the truth, a higher dimensional shape than what we're used to thinking. I'm I'm interested in how we said about the jinn and humans penetrating with authority. Are you aware that the observable universe is observed by the Vatican in many of their observatories? The Vatican are very, very interested in observing the celestial bodies. The Vatican have got the world's largest telescope, and it's called Lucifer. I would love to understand why you think they call the biggest telescope in the world Lucifer, the light bearer, like the planet Venus, or maybe the Polaris star. But yeah, the Vatican are very, very interested in observing the celestial beings, and they've called the biggest telescope in the world Lucifer. I would like to know why you think they've called that Lucifer, if they're not really Babylonian, worshipping demigods and stuff, acting like Christians. I'd like to know why they've dedicated the biggest telescope in the world to Lucifer, of all names. I'd also like to know if anywhere in the Quran suggests that the sun is 40 times bigger than the moon, but also magically, coincidentally, 40 times closer. Sorry, the moon is supposedly 40 times closer to Earth than the sun, which is why supposedly the sun and the moon are not the same size, but they just so happen to look the same size, because one is 40 times closer than the other one that's 40 times bigger but further away. Is there any verse in the Quran that suggests that the sun is that much bigger than the moon, but just happen to be the right distance so that they look the same size? Because in the ayat that I was quoting, the sun and the moon are swimming in their orbit, subjected to us. So they're subject to us, our authority, meaning that the Quran suggests that they're in orbit around us, subject to us. And that doesn't make sense if one of them's 400 or 40 times bigger, but magically 40 times further away than the other. Is there anywhere in the Quran that suggests that the sun is bigger and that the moon is closer? And is there anywhere in the Quran that suggests that the earth is swimming in its orbit? Because I couldn't find any.
Okay, if you're done, I can just go ahead if you'd like.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Owen.
Okay, so let me try to take your points in sequence. So you first asked about the toroid. So the hadith, this is not in the Quran, this is the hadith. Okay, so it says in the meaning, I can actually Google it now because I don't memorize it word by word. And actually, I will speak it in Arabic and then I will translate it to English. So here, just a second.
Yep.
Okay, so here is what it says. So it says روى ابن حبان وصححه أن الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم قال. So the Prophet is talking to one of his companions. He is called Abu Dharr. So he says, يا أبا ذر, O Abu Dharr, ما السماوات السبع مع الكرسي إلا كحلقة ملقاة بأرض فلاة وفضل العرش على الكرسي كفضل الفلاة على الحلقة. So this is one that is talking about the whole big thing. So it says the seven heavens and the kursi is the leg rest that is below the throne, except like a halqa, and halqa is a ring. So you can imagine a ring like this. So it's a toroid. So it's like a donut, okay? كحلقة ملقاة بأرض فلاة, like a donut thrown in a desert. And وَفَضْلُ الْعَرْشِ عَلَى الْكُرْسِي, and the throne versus the kursi is the significance or the magnificence of the throne versus the kursi is like also a donut thrown in a desert. And there are other hadith that are talking exactly the same way about the seven heavens, starting from the Sama ad-Dunya, the first heaven, which is our universe. So it says that our universe versus the next heaven is like a toroid, or like actually a halakha, a ring in a desert, and the second versus the third until it reaches to the kursi, and then this one says the kursi versus the throne, and then all of this is totally insignificant versus God. So it says that in size-wise, because in one of your comments you said, well, if the earth is so small and humanity is so small, how can we be significant? So the Islamic view is that we are actually so small. But it also says something else, that size does not matter. It says that size does not matter to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. God does not care about size. God cares about other things. So our value is not because we are big or small. The value of what planet Earth carries is not related to whether planet Earth is a huge planet like Jupiter or just a small planet like, I don't know, Mercury. It's not this what makes you significant. Jinn, on the other hand, for example, and for those who do not understand what jinn is, so in the English literature or the English culture or the Christian culture, it's called maybe evil spirits or something, I don't know, or elves, if you're talking about mythology. So in Islam, there are two creatures living in this universe that Allah has told us about, which is humans who have material bodies, and jinn who have like an electromagnetic nature. Okay, they are made of fire, and so they are not visible to humans, but they can also travel in great distances, so in great speeds, I mean. And there are other sentient creatures called angels, but they don't have free will. They just do what God tells them to do. And in the Quran, the speed of jinn is described as one of the jinn was able to offer King Solomon, who is actually a prophet in Islam, to bring to him the throne of the Queen of Sheba before he stands. So he would go to Yemen, and Solomon was in Levant, in Palestine, and back within a time before Prophet Solomon would end his meeting. So this is great speed. So we're talking about thousands in kilometers in maybe minutes. So jinn are described in Islam as traveling in very great speeds. So to have a creature like jinn contained on a planet like Earth, those guys would really have trouble, you know. If humans were like Flash, you know, this Flash character, a DC kind of character who travels very fast, if we can travel that fast, then planet Earth would look very small to us. So for a universe to contain humans and jinn, this has to be a very big universe. And this is why in the Quran, for example, God is talking about an interaction between jinn and celestial objects. That some celestial objects like meteors or meteorites have actually interaction with jinn, because jinn are all over space. They can actually travel to other planets and travel the cosmos. And this means that you need a universe that is very huge to the extent that they cannot reach its rim. So when the Quran is talking to the jinn and to the humans, telling them, you cannot go through the diameters of the heavens and the earth, it is number one, because the universe is so huge to them. And number two, that there are other means to go outside of this universe that needs permission. So for example, it is part of the belief in Islam that prophets like Abraham, for example, and obviously Prophet Muhammad, went outside of this universe in the trip that is known as Al-Eshrah. Okay, where Archangel Gabriel, for example, took Prophet Muhammad to the second heaven and the third heaven, up to what is called as Sirrat al-Muntaha, which is beyond the seventh heaven. My belief, as somebody who understands science and religion, that the seven heavens are indeed probably 7 extra dimensions. And as somebody who understands something about relativity and quantum mechanics, There is a theory called M theory, and the M theory is a product of something called the string theory. Okay, so one of the solutions of the string theory that looks to make sense is that the universe needs to be 11 dimensions. And when I compare that to what Islam is talking about, that there is 7 heavens apart from the universe that we live in. We know that the universe that we live in has 3 spatial dimensions, X, Y, and Z, plus the time dimension. So this makes 4. And then the Quran is talking about 7 heavens. So 7 plus 4 is 11. I find it very amazing that M theory, for example, would agree to the physical universe that we live in plus 7 heavens.
I think that's a good point to get Howard back in on. Is that, if that's okay, and then finish off, just because I'm a bit conscious Howard's not said anything for a while, and I just want to try and make it as even as I can. But pause that point and come back in on that. I think that's a good one. All right, sorry, you muted, Howard. I didn't mute you. Did you mute yourself? Okay.
Yeah. Can you hear me, Ahmed? Can you see what I'm showing on the screen? So imagine that you've got Earth, and like you were saying, in concentric rings. So we've got Earth in the middle, which is where we have the yin-yang symbol with our sun and our moon going around us. And then outside or below in another dimension is another land where the sun and the moon are Mars and Venus. And then another land further out or in a lower dimension where we have Saturn and Jupiter as the sun and the moon of that land. So the Earth might have 7 concentric rings because the Quran says that there's 7 heavens. So maybe each heaven is its own torus field, and that there are 7 torus fields to make up the whole universe, which is the multiple Earths or the multiple lands, extraterrane, where you find extraterrestrials, might be governed by a different sun, like Mars, a different moon, like Venus, and then the outer side where you've got Earthlings, then you've got green Martians, then you've got grey Martians, where they get the sun less often than we do, and their sun is Jupiter and their moon is Saturn. So this kind of torus field, which has multiple torus fields, like our body is the nucleus, sideways, Earth, our body has multiple torus fields. We have a torus field for our heart. We have an electromagnetic field coming from our heart. We have an electromagnetic field coming from our brain. Each organ, like a musical organ, generates an electromagnetic field. So as our body has multiple electromagnetic fields, multiple torus fields, it makes sense to me that Earth could be a multi-dimensional shape with different dimensions on the plane of inertia, where we call the nucleus the solid, real, our physical reality, and that each torus field is wrapped around each land and has electrons and protons, which we call suns and moons, governing that land, holding that electromagnetic resonance, like we call the Schumann resonance in our Earth. That goes with the yin-yang symbol. It also goes with the Quran, and it also goes with many other myths that talk about Earth being level, geocentric, and that the heavens are around us, governing our lands with what we call heat and cold. I'd also like just to mention what you were saying before about it is possible that NASA and the other space agencies like SpaceX and especially Russia and Japan and China might have faked it in a Hollywood studio since the 60s, because there's many people that don't believe the moon landings, because there's many things with the moon landings that look completely fake and they don't match other space agencies. Your question is, how could such a big conspiracy last so long? Well, I remind you of the Antarctic Treaty. The Antarctic Treaty was set up by the same people, the United Nations, that set up the space agencies. The same year as the Antarctic Treaty was formed, so was the space agencies. Now, my question is, how come the Antarctic Treaty has survived 60 years? No country in the world has broken this treaty for 60 years. That's a conspiracy on its own. Why is it that we've had world wars and cold wars, yet the Russians have respected the Antarctic Treaty and America have respected the Antarctic Treaty? How come we can have the Antarctic Treaty for 60 years? How come we can have the International Fake Space Station up there while we're at Cold War and while we're in the Ukrainian war now? It seems quite unrealistic that all of these treaties by the United Nations could last 60 years unless that there was more to it and that we're really being kept in the dark for the real reasons why we can't go to the Antarctica and explore. So we can't see the edge, or we can't find the firmament, or we can't see if there's other lands like they say there might be, because we're not allowed. And like you said, it is strange that they haven't gone space, put a camera on the moon facing Earth so that we can see this beautiful pear-shaped oblate spheroid, supposedly that's not perfectly round, even though they show us perfectly round images all the time. Why can't we see Earth rotating live, real time? Why can't we see hurricanes and tornadoes and weather? Why can't we see the weather in real time when there's supposedly thousands of satellites up there for the last 50, 60 years? And why haven't we put a camera on the moon to record the Earth 24/7? It doesn't really make sense. We would have if we'd been to the moon. So I don't believe in satellites, and I don't believe we've been to the moon. I do believe that the world governments could perpetrate conspiracies for over 60 years, because they have done with the Antarctic Treaty, the International Space Station, and none of their footage matches each other. So, yeah.
Okay. But Ahmed, back to you. What I'm going to say is, we did say about 40 minutes for the back and forth. That to me says we've got about 8 minutes left back and forth. Just let you know, and then we'll bring in questions from the chat and a close. But yeah, back to you, Ahmed.
Okay, so I just want to say that you said that I said that I agree that NASA has faked it. I didn't say that. I say that it is a fact that there isn't a single picture for planet Earth that is not processed, sort of CGI. But that does not, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Okay. So it says that there is something that is really fishy, okay? Because it is quite easy to completely debunk all flat Earth, to completely and immediately debunk all flat Earth propositions if a telescope like the Hubble or like the James Webb just looks back and pictures Earth, and from where it is, it can definitely picture Earth very easily and show something, totally unequivocal. However, maybe they have other reasons that is not related to whether the Earth is flat or globular. But let me tell you something. You asked me a question whether, as an engineer, can I actually observe that Earth is flat. I will tell you a story about the Muslim culture, the Muslim civilization. So Muslims actually took the world from the dark ages into the light of science again, because for some reason Europe has plunged into a dark age after a specific Roman emperor did some bad actions at a point of time. And there is this scientist called Al-Idrisi, and he was born at 1100 AD. And Al-Idrisi, you can say, is the father of modern geography, let's say, or the person who has caused the revival of the modern geography. He's a Muslim scientist, obviously. And let me read from you a quotation from what Al-Idrisi says. So Al-Idrisi says this: وَإِنَّ الْأَرْضَ مُدَوَّرَةٌ كَتَدْوِيرِ الْكُرَةِ, and I'm reading in Arabic and I'm translating now in English. And surely the earth is spherical like a ball. وَالْمَاءُ لَاصِقٌ بِهَا, and water is attached to it. وَرَاكِدٌ عَلَيْهَا رُكُودًا طَبِيعِيًّا لَا يُفَارِقُهَا, and rests on top of it in a natural way, and it does not separate from it. وَالْأَرْضُ وَالْمَاءُ مُسْتَقِرَّانِ فِي جَوْفِ الْفَلَكِ, and earth and its water are resting in the midst of space. And now I'll also take another quotation from a Muslim scholar, this time, called Ibn Hazm. And Ibn Hazm is a Muslim jurist, a scholar of Islamic religion, but also one of the jewels of Islamic civilization in Andalusia, which is Iberia, which is now Spain and Portugal. And Ibn Hazm was born he was in Cordova in 994 AD. Okay, so this guy is saying this more than 1,000 years ago. Okay, and let me tell you what Ibn Hazm says. And he is talking on the tongue of other jurists. He says, قالوا إن البراهين قد صحت من القرآن والسنة بأن الأرض كروية. He is saying, قالوا, they said, and he is talking about other jurists, other scholars. إن البراهين, the evidence, قد صحت, have been proven true from Quran and Sunnah that the earth is spherical. This is a Muslim scholar more than 1,000 years ago, and a Muslim geographer almost the same amount of time. And those are not the only Muslim scientists or scholars who have arrived to this conclusion. And the reason they have arrived to this conclusion is through measurement. So one of the Muslim scientists, for example, has done an experiment that he did more than 1,000 years ago, where he put poles, like a pole, like the one that we put a flag on. And he put one of them in Cairo, I remember, and another one in Aswan, and this was in Egypt. And he measured the length of the shadow in Egypt and the length of the shadow in Aswan, which is about 1,000 kilometers to the south, at the same point in the day, in the same time of the year. And from this measurement, he concluded that the earth needs to be spherical. And amazingly, he calculated the diameter of planet Earth to a great precision. That is amazing that he has arrived to that precision, given that he lived like 1,000 years ago. So if your question is, can somebody use his own observation and conclude that the earth is spherical and arrive to that? Actually, yes. I can do it now if I have the time and the patience, like those ancient Muslim scholars. I don't.
Just
but
one more minute before I pass over to Howard.
But I would trust that they couldn't have been part of a NASA global conspiracy, because that kind of organizations did not occur yet, and those people were people who were acting on their scientific inquiry and even religious inquiries. The great thing about Islamic culture and Islamic civilization and Islamic science is that it was illuminated by religion, because there is a command in the Quran actually that we should walk the earth to find out about the creation. قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَانْظُرُوا كَيْفَ بَدَأَ الْخَلْقِ. Walk the earth and see how the creation has started. So just to conclude my comments, there are some fishy things, but we don't know the motivation why some evidence do not exist. But we know that there are so many fishy things in our lives and in this miserable world. They do not need to drive us to specific conclusions. If we need to reach specific conclusions, we need specific evidence. And it has been the fact and the case that through Muslim and Christian history, that people have reached the conclusions about a globular Earth and a solar system and orbits without being part of a possible conspiracy today. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks. Now, we're getting close to the questions from the chat, but Howard, you'll get the last say in the back and forth. I'll give you about 5 minutes, and then we'll go to the questions from the chat. Okay? So, off you go.
Awesome. Okay, so if there is a devil, or shaitan or Satan, I can't imagine a better conspiracy than getting everybody to believe that they're insignificantly small and that we exist in this insignificant moment of a few 100,000 years over billions of years, because surely the creator, as described in the Quran and the Bible, would be able to create Earth now. He wouldn't have to wait billions of years to watch his little experiment flower. So I'm not convinced that the creator would need billions of years and an infinite expanding space. I am convinced that if this is a conspiracy, that it is diabolical and that it's demonically inspired. All the calculations add up. We've got Newton's gravity in 1666. There's the 666. We've got 8 inches per mile squared. 8 inches is 0.666 of a foot. We've got the speed of Earth orbiting the sun at 660,000 kilometers or miles per hour. And we've got 666 all over the globe model, but that doesn't go with the Quran. The Quran doesn't talk about 666, but the Bible does, and the Quran and the Bible have got a lot of things in common. You were saying that about I might have to come back to that one. I've forgotten now. You were saying about primary observations. Yeah, the sticks. You also admitted that the sticks giving shadows would get the same result if the sun was a lot closer and a lot smaller. So the experiment with the shadows doesn't really hold much weight, because it could be a local small sun, or it could be a complete fabrication, because how did he measure the shadow distance at the same time? 1,000 years ago, we didn't have watches, we had sundials, and we didn't have telephones to find out if the other guy's measuring at the exact same time. So that experiment is just a story. It's his story. It's not real. It's nothing that we can reproduce now. Something that we can reproduce now, if I can get this in my 5 minutes, the Quran talks about the stars being like lamps in the firmament, and that we can use the stars, the sun and the moon, to tell the time. Well, I don't think that the zodiac, the constellations, have suffered any disfigurement in the thousands of years that we've been recording them in stone. Aquarius hasn't dropped any water. Scorpio has got claws. They're still claws. They're still sharp. Yeah. And we've got all the different constellations in the same place. None of them Orion hasn't got any fat fatter or thinner. You know, Orion with the belt, the 3 stars in the belt, they align with the 3 pyramids of Giza in Egypt. And they used to thousands of years ago. So none of the stars have changed position in thousands of years. Just like the Quran says, they're lamps in our firmament, firm, solid, not moving. They might rotate around us, but they aren't moving. In thousands of years, no constellations have suffered any disfigurement. And just to go back to Orion, are you aware, Ahmed, that we can observe Orion for 9 months of the year? Even if we could only observe it for 6 months of the year, this doesn't make sense on the ball. In your belief system, we're on this side of the sun in summer, and nighttime is this way. 6 months later, it's now winter, and nighttime is that way. How can we see Orion above the equator, which is supposed to be over there? How can we be on the different side of the sun, looking a different direction, and we can see Orion summer, we can see Orion 6 months later, winter. We see Orion above the equator, passing the sky, crossing the same path in the sky. It doesn't matter what time of year, we will see Orion for 9 months of the year, passing the same path in the sky, just at a different time of night. And the 3 months that we can't see it is because it's above us in the daytime. But it's still there. It's still crossing the same path in the sky. Make that make sense in the globe model. Please help me end my doubt in this science that we keep quoted to preach to believe, because my observations tell me we're not looking a different direction 6 months later, because we see the same stars, Orion, passing the same part of the sky time after time for thousands and thousands of years, by the way, as depicted in the zodiac, the Aztec, the Mayan, the Egyptian calendar, and even the Quran says clearly.
Okay,
so yeah, please tell me how we can see Orion all year and how none of the stars have changed position in thousands of years, please.
Okay, I'm sure we'll get, when it's summing up, I'm sure Ahmed will address that in summing up. Now we'll go to the questions. What I'm going to try and do, please, I think I've said to the chat, I've put it on the banner that scrolls across the bottom, if they can tag who the question is for, because what I'm going to do is try and alternate, a question for Ahmed, a question for Howard, back and forth. I'm expecting there to be quite a few questions, so I'm going to be quite strict with a 1 minute time limit. So please don't be offended if I just cut you off after exactly a minute, because otherwise we won't get through many questions. Okay, so let's scroll up to the tags. Well, first of all, there were some. I'll do the super chats after them. Okay, let's have a look. First question is from Jim Broughton. Now, actually, he hasn't said who this one's to, but I'm assuming it's to you, Howard. Okay, so what relevance does it have whether or not the Quran supports FE? And a lot of your evidence is addressing FE and not the relevance of the Quran to it. So you got a minute for that, Howard. What relevance does it have whether the Quran supports it? A minute. You've muted yourself.
Sorry. I think I answered it before. I use the Quran, the Bible, the artifacts of all over the world from the ancient civilizations, like the Dendora calendar in the ceiling of Dendora in Egypt, where they've carved the 88 constellations in stone, and they're still in the same place as when they carved them in stone thousands of years ago. The Bible and the Quran were written thousands of years ago. It's historical evidence that adds to the primary observations that we can make for ourselves, like looking at Orion for 9 months of the year. These are things that we can test, just like leaving water under the moonlight and we can see that the moonlight chills water, just like looking across bodies of water and never seeing anything hidden below the horizon or behind the horizon, because primary observations match the historical evidence that tells us we're being lied to.
Brilliant. Okay, at the minute, all the questions that have come in do seem to be for you, Howard. So please start tagging something for Ahmed. But what I'll do now is, because you did specifically ask Ahmed about the what did you ask? I'm looking at your picture there about Orion in the sky. I'll put Howard's question to you, Ahmed. But you've got 60 seconds. And don't be offended if I cut you off.
He actually started by asking about the billions of years. I would like to start by that one. So,
okay, so
the
you
question,
got 1 minute though. 1 minute.
Yeah, I'll just say the question and then start counting the 1 minute, please. So the question for that Howard mentioned is, why does God Almighty need to wait for billions of years to have the universe created? And how come humans would be only a few thousands of years or hundreds of thousands of years old? Okay, so my answer is like this. If it is a matter of waiting, okay, then billions of years or 6 days or 6 epochs would be the same, right? Your argument is God Almighty can and should create the universe in an instant, and this should be now. But actually, both the Bible and the Quran does not say that God has created the universe instantaneously, but it actually says that God has created the universe through a process that took 6 days. And in the Quran, 6 days refers to 6 epochs, because a day in the Quran is used to identify a period in many places. And the Quranic view is hence, and the biblical view, I can claim, that God did not create the universe instantly. He created the universe through a process. It also describes the process of creating humanity, that God told the angels that he is going to create humanity and place them on earth, and that God created humanity through a process. So the argument of God doesn't need billions of years actually doesn't stand very well. So that's for this one question.
Whoa! You did that in exactly 1 minute as well. On the screen. That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, I move that. I'm just going to put the timer on for both of you, so you can see I'm being fair with it, and also it stops me having to count. So, there are some. I can see there's some coming in for Ahmed as well. Right. So a question from, I'm going to pronounce this completely wrong, right? Jeroen de Fleischhaver. Sorry, Jeroen. He says, this is for you, Howard. He has a video on his channel showing how Polaris moves and how this is, and I assume he means moves when with latitude, but for the observer. And how it's been implemented on one of his telescope EQ mounts that debunks your... Oh, that wasn't a question. He's just saying it debunks your argument. Right, you have to check it out. Sorry, that wasn't a question. Let's get another one for you. We'll get there for you, though. Okay. One from Jim. In fact, he sent another one later on, which I will ask you at the end. Jim Broughton says, your historical evidence says we're all descended from Adam and Eve. How does this match with the population of the globe? I know it's slightly off topic, but I'm going to ask you that anyway. So you've got, how does your historical evidence for the Adam and Eve match up with the population on the globe? You've got a minute, off you go.
This is Howard or myself?
Oh, sorry, this is Howard. I'll just restart that. You've muted yourself, mate. Howard, you're muted.
Okay,
I'll start.
We can share this one, Ahmed.
Well, you've got a minute to do it.
I'll just give my answer quickly. Yeah, my answer is, just like we can see different breeds or different kinds of dogs coming from a dog, maybe different races of human have come from Adam and Eve as the fathers and mother of every race.
Ahmed, have you got anything to add? I mean, I don't know what the Quran says about creation, and like, does it support the flood and an Adam and Eve type? I genuinely don't know.
Okay, if you can start the minute over.
Yeah. So pause clear. Here we go. We got a minute.
So yes, the Quran very clearly says that Adam and Eve are the grandparents of the whole of humanity. Now, does that necessarily have an issue with science? My opinion, no. Some might like to watch discussion or a debate that I had with Dr. Joshua Swamidass, who is an American scientist, also a Christian, and it's on my channel, about the matter of a book that he authored called The Genealogical Adam and Eve. He says that Adam and Eve can be scientifically proven to be the grandparents of the whole of humanity, but he says that there were other humanoids that they breeded with. I do not agree with that one. I think that Adam and Eve are the exclusive parents of humanity. And my personal belief is that their genetics enable the diversity. Concerning the flood, the flood, let's do another question for it, I guess. It's another topic.
So I've got to be really strict on the timing, otherwise we'll not get through them all.
Sure.
And there are quite a few. Right. What have I done? How do I get my thing back? Okay, so since you both answered that one, we'll do another one for Howard. And then go to you, Ahmed. So, Howard, this is from Jerome. Again, I'll not try and butcher your name. I apologize for that, Jerome. He says for you, if planets are light sources, how come he has a primary observation in his channel showing Io coming out of Jupiter's shadow? So how can basically a moon come out of the shadow of a light source, I suppose? I'll start your time now.
Could you just say the question again? It broke up a little bit. How can a moon what?
He says he's got a video on his channel of Io coming out of the shadow of Jupiter. How is that possible if Jupiter is a light source?
Okay. I showed a video of Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, and a few of the stars, and you could clearly see that Jupiter's very bright with a modern camera. You can clearly see Jupiter at night with the naked eye, very bright. And if you've got a good camera, you can zoom in on those moons, like in my video, and you'll see that those moons are also very bright, which debunks the whole theory that they're overexposed and the camera's recording distortion, because there's no distortion in my video. You can clearly see the three moons are very bright, twinkling as bright as Jupiter. So just like the moon has phases, our moon, we're not sure what the moons of Jupiter are, but they definitely seem to be emitting their own light, like Jupiter clearly does, which we can all see with the naked eye.
Got to be strict, but basically they're their own light sources, but they have phases. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Ahmed, this is from Robski. I'm not necessarily choosing these questions in the order they were posted in the chat, just because I'm trying to keep on top of myself and I missed some, so apologies for that. But this is for you, Ahmed.
Okay.
Oh no, it's a comment.
What about? Yeah.
Why do most YouTube channels with the word truth in the title generally spread lies? I think what he's saying is he doesn't agree with you. I will find another question for you. Lady Selena Felicity White, who's always supporting the channel, being in the comments and stuff. Thank you so much for being here. This is for you, Ahmed. If there was a barrier around the Earth, then why have we managed to send probes outside of the solar system, namely Voyager 1 and 2?
Okay, so scientifically, I don't think there is a barrier around the Earth, and the Quran does not say that there is a barrier around the Earth.
I think it was the comment about needing authorization or something. What would you say before? Special permissions to pass through?
Yeah, so the ayah has two implications. Number one, that there is a relation between the diameter of the Earth and the diameter of the whole universe, and that it is possible to travel outside of the universe. But getting outside of the universe needs special power or special authorization. Now, is this consistent with science? The answer is yes. Why? Because we know that the speed of expansion, the the calculated speed of expansion of the cosmos is faster than the speed of light. And that's why we know that the light that we're getting from the CMB is like the age of the universe is 13.8 billion years, while the universe is 96 billion light years across. And the reason is attributed to the expansion of the universe. So Allah is saying that nonetheless, through my authorization, you can actually escape the universe and get out. And some Muslim scholars and scientists are talking about black holes as a means for that. That's
yeah, just 2 seconds over. That's good. That's good. Right, now, I'll pick out maybe another 1 or 2 questions each, and then we'll get straight to your closing arguments. I did promise me little, and well, say little, and she's not so little now, that we'd watch the end of Stranger Things, just gone 9. So, so I know she's waiting downstairs. What's this? Thank you very much, Sofa King Sleepy. Diffusion of osmosis is diffusion from an area of low concentration to a semi-pure membrane. Okay, I must have missed. Thank you for that. I must have missed the comment on osmosis when I was checking the chat. So I'm assuming somebody said something about osmosis and he's just correcting those. But thank you so much for that, Sofa King Sleepy. Appreciate it. Right. I'm losing myself here now, trying to keep track of different screens. So, Howard, there will be a question for you because there's loads. There are loads. I've just got to find it. I know what question I'm going to ask you next, Ahmed. I've got those are. So, for Howard, sorry. Everyone watching the video on replay will be fast forwarding through this bit because I'm just okay. Actually, it's got a couple of questions asking you why can we see shadows on things like the moon if they're a light source? But I think you've answered that they have their own kind of phases. Is what you think, right? Actually, I don't think I have got too many more questions. I thought I did. Let's have a quick look. I've got a lot of same questions about light sources and people wanting you to debunk videos on the channel that I can't show you at the minute. Okay. Maybe you just have to tag me in now if you think I've missed one. But I have seen one for you, Ahmed, so I'll come to you next while people tag in a question for Howard if I've missed it.
Sure.
And this question, because I've scanned past it, you're going to have to take the credit for typing this in the chat because I've missed your name. Sorry. But somebody's asked, when you were talking about sort of like the Adam and Eve figure being the grandparents to everybody, has asked about ERVs and evidence of sort of evolution. Do you know much about ERVs, how they contradict that? And I think they said, were you prepared for that question? Which is an in-joke on the channel of Kent Hovind was never prepared to talk about ERVs. So do you know what they are and how they kind of debunk the idea?
Give me the minute if you'd like.
Yeah, I'll put that on the screen starting now.
Okay, so ERVs are endogenous retroviruses, and they are, really? I think, one of the best evidence that evolutionists put to advocate evolution. Now, ERVs are not conclusive evidence, and this definitely would take more than a minute. But I would like to point the audience out to a series that I'm doing with Dr. Faz Rana, who is a PhD in biochemistry. And one of the topics that we have addressed in the after show was actually related to anthropology and why ERVs can have plenty of holes in them. Now, the argument that evolutionists make is that ERVs are actually purely viral insertions in the DNA, and since those insertions coincide between humans and chimps, then humans and chimps must have a common ancestor. So I would rather refer you to that video, and there will be another episode at the end of the series that actually talks about pseudogenes that will expand on that more.
All right, no, I like that. It would be very difficult to answer that in a minute, I agree. But I'm impressed you knew what they were. It shows that you've obviously looked at that's impressive stuff. Okay, so we'll come to Howard. Last question for you. Then we'll do one last question for Ahmed. Then we'll go to the final summing up. So Howard, this is from Mr. Jones, 1972. He says, can I ask you what shape you think that the Earth actually is? And what measurements have you done? And you've got a minute. Sorry, off you go.
I think the Earth is a multi-dimensional shape, which is possibly why the Quran talks about 7 heavens, because there's more to us than just 3D. Our consciousness, our memory, our feelings are possibly in the 4th dimension. So how can Earth be limited to 3 dimensions if we are more than just the 3-dimensional bodies that we live in? So yeah, I believe that there's more shapes than we can perceive, and we might never know the whole truth, but we can use science to reduce the false variables and escape the indoctrination and the embezzlement of over 100 million of daily taxes that could be better invested.
That's time. Okay, thank you for that. Again, difficult to answer in a minute, I know, but and then okay, last question for you is from JG. Okay, and he says. And then there are a couple of unread super chats, so I am going to read those. Definitely, don't feel that I'm not going to. I definitely will. So he says, JG says, Ahmed, why do you use scientific findings to help you interpret the Quran?
Okay, let me take a minute then.
And 3, here we go. Time's on.
Okay, so the Quran comes with the great proposition that it is a book from God, and it is a book that embraces human observation. It says سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم حتى يتبين لهم أنه الحق. We will show them our signs in the horizons and within themselves until it is evident to them that it is the truth, talking about the Quran. And it says قل سيروا في الأرض فانظروا كيف بدأ الخلق. Walk the earth and see how creation has started. So the Quran urges Muslims and non-Muslims to look at the deepest horizons in deep space and within themselves, maybe microbiology, to confirm the matter of existence of God and also to confirm his revelation. So the Quran embraces science. If something is a scientific observation or an unequivocal scientific fact, it is a friend to the Quran. That's it.
Okay, brilliant timed. Right. Okay, I'm going to read out those last couple of super chats. Then I'm going to put that 30-second countdown timer on again while I run downstairs, grab a beer from the fridge, tell my daughter to get Stranger Things set up, and then I'll come up and we'll do the final statements from both of you. So what super chats have we missed? So we have one from DK who said, oh, we've asked you that, but he did say, if you think the Quran verifies your position on a flat earth, Howard, are you a Muslim? And if not, why not? But you have answered that. Jim Broughton said you deserve a beer for this. Thank you very much, Jim, for that. He also said a question for you, Howard, specifically. If the Quran or the Bible, right, provides evidence for FE, then does the Mr. Tickle book provide evidence for small orange men with long arms? I think that was a tongue-in-cheek joke. Dora, thank you, Dora, says she's summoning some gins, and I think she means the alcoholic gins tonight. Hope you're enjoying those. Thank you very much. And we've seen Sofa King Sleepy, who was correcting someone on osmosis, but I missed that bit of the conversation. Right, guys, have a think about what you're going to say in your closing statements. I'm going to put the timer on while I run downstairs, tell my daughter I'll not be too long, and I'll be back in literally 30 seconds, starting now.
You can still hear me, Ahmed. I just wanted to say thank you for...
Oh, no, I didn't make it.
Can you...
Balls. Man, I tried as well. As fast as I could be. But I did get one of nature's finest there. Carl's Isaac. There we go. Right. I think I've got through everything I need to get through there. Let's have a look. Okay, we didn't decide who was going to give the closing statement first. I'm happy for you to decide amongst yourselves. Has anyone got a preference?
I don't mind if Howard wants to go first.
I could quickly. That'd be great.
Yeah. How long are we having for these,
Okay.
by the way, just so it's the same for both of you?
Let's do
I
it.
probably only need about
opening.
3 minutes, 2 or 3.
3. Well, I mean, it's only a maximum. It's not a target you've got to hit. So if you want 10 minutes, Howard, I can give you 10. If you don't use 10, Howard, it's not a problem. Just use what you've got. But you've got 10. I'm going to whack the thing on the screen just so we know not to go over 10. Off you go, buddy.
Can you put me on a big screen? Por favor.
Can I put you on the... I probably
Awesome.
can, if I know how. How do I do
That'll
that?
do. As it is, it'll be fine. Don't worry, that's fine. Okay, so here's a picture from Egypt, which clearly shows the 88 constellations as drawn on the ceiling in the Dendora temple. Now, they haven't changed position in thousands of years. So I would like an explanation on how we can be orbiting the sun and the sun's orbiting our known universe if none of those stars have changed location in thousands of years. Not one, none of them. So there's that debunks the globe model and the outer space model. There's also this, which is a very simple drawing, which just to show you what I was saying before. In summer, we're looking that way. In winter, we're looking that way. It doesn't make any sense that we can see the same stars like Orion with the belt, the 3 stars in the belt. It doesn't make any sense that we can see Orion when we're looking that way in winter, that way in summer, and a completely another way in autumn. We might not see it for 3 months of the year, but we see it for 9 months of the year. That doesn't make sense on the globe because we're looking completely different directions. Yet we can. So that means that either our eyes are lying or maybe the space agencies are. Because not only can we see stars haven't changed any position and that we see the same stars crossing the same path in the sky throughout the whole year for thousands of years, back to the primary observations that Ahmed was recommending, the Quran says we should test all things and explore. Yes, we can see the horizon, and the horizon isn't a physical obstruction. Every day it changes depending on light refraction. We can see too far. We can see way too far for the dimensions that we're given. We would expect to lose visibility of buildings, mountains, islands, but we don't. I can see the island of Ibiza from Denia, which is over 100 kilometers away. If I go to the Isle of Man, I can see Blackpool, or vice versa. I can be in England and I can be in Blackpool looking at the Isle of Man, which is over 100 miles away. We would expect to have lost the majority of the island, if not all of the island, but we can see the whole island from top to bottom, whether we're looking at the island of Ibiza in Spain or the Isle of Man from Blackpool, England. And there's many more observations that we can make where we would expect to see landscape partially or completely hidden below or behind the horizon. But we don't. We always see what we'd expect to see. And that if Earth is 70% covered in water, and that water is observably, measurably flat, then I can't see how we can be on a globe if 70% of that water isn't measuring any curvature at all, due to the fact that we never lose sight of landscape that should be partially or completely hidden. And if we're going to stick with the light refraction excuse, how come light refraction is always at eye level 2? How come it's never higher or lower? How come no matter how far we're looking or where the light source is positioned, we always see at eye level things in the distance that should be below or behind the horizon, hidden due to curvature, a geometric horizon? It doesn't exist. So am I supposed to ignore all the primary observations I make at water level that show that light refracts perfectly at eye level every time? Or maybe we can actually see what we can see and that there is no curvature. So if there's no curvature, we can still see the same stars as thousands of years ago haven't changed position in the sky. And no matter what time of year, we can see constellations like Orion crossing the same path in the sky, just at a different time of night. Those three things cause me to be skeptical. I'm not the only person in this world that doesn't believe in the globe anymore. There's millions of people, and every day there's more. With the technology we have, we should easily be able to debunk flat Earth and any other model, but we can't, which means that the observations and evidence is getting stronger, hence why the community of globe skepticism is getting bigger. So I recommend that people stick to what the Quran says and stop looking for interpretations that match the atheistic universe model that we've been given to believe, and that people also look at the historical stars etched in stone and the stars that we can see above us at night and how they cross the same path throughout the whole year, even when we're supposed to be on a different side of the sun, looking a complete different direction. These things, I would love somebody to try and prove me wrong. I don't know how you do it, because we can all see the stars crossing the same path year after year, and we can all see the same constellations that were etched in stone, and we can all see islands and landscape out at sea or along the coast that shouldn't be visible due to this magic curvature, but it is. We don't lose landscape behind the horizon. We don't see any disfigurement in the star constellations, and we can see constellations above the equator like Orion throughout the whole year, or at least 9 months of the year, even when we're supposed to be looking a completely different direction.
Oakley dokley. And just to show everyone how long you did take, you did well under there, well
Thank
under
you.
7 minutes. Ahmed, I will just reset the clock. Would you also like to be full screen for that, or are you happy?
I'd be happy in this way or the other one, whatever. I have my counter in front of me, so don't worry about me noticing the time. So I'm fine.
Okay. I'll just put it up in the last minute for the crowd.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll hit start in 3, 2, 1. Gone.
Okay. So the importance of the question, whether the Quran or the Bible, I'll talk about the Quran, but I also like to mention the Bible. Whether the Quran or the Bible support or not a globe Earth and a universe that has space and stars and galaxies is a question that should not be taken lightly. And the reason is that if somebody, based on faith, takes a specific position with or against science, then you are running the risk that once the science moves from being a theory to a directly observable fact, and you have taken a position of complete rejection of that observation beforehand, that you run the risk of losing your faith. So the Islamic position on the questions of science when taking a position towards a specific issue that can be verified by science is that Muslims would look at what is unequivocally mentioned in the Quran and what has reached the position of a scientific observation. That is, it can be verified by a measurement. And Muslims who understand what Islam is about never take a firm position with or against a matter that can be judged by science based on religious reasons, unless the Quran specifically has an unequivocal position towards it. Okay? So, having said that, whether the Quran or not supports Earth that is globular, we can ask Muslims who have lived on the face of this planet for 1400 years. And Islam has fostered science. It caused people who have started as the first Muslims were people around Prophet Muhammad in the middle of the desert, Bedouins, traders, having no place at all on the face of the planet at that time related to scientific discovery. The miracle of Islam is that those people, within few decades, became the leaders of humanity, the largest empire on the face of the earth that lasted for maybe the longest time that an empire has lasted, not even putting itself in the place of what empires did. But people, when they lived under empires, they detested the religion of the empire and they revolted against the empire. But Islam has embraced Persians, Romans, people in Iberia, Egyptians who have been very strong opposers of the Roman Empire. When the Roman Empire was pagan and when the Roman Empire was Christian, Egyptians took a different denomination of Christianity and were very stubborn. But all the peoples of the world came under Islam, and Islam elevated the population of these center places, the central place of Earth, into a culture that embraces science. And those people who embraced both Islam and science had no problem whatsoever regarding an Earth that is a globe and a universe that has orbits and celestial objects that are orbiting, and Earth that is spherical. They found that the Quran does not take a position that denies this. Now, what happens if tomorrow it is found that Earth is not a globe? Actually, Muslims will not have a problem, because Muslims do not stand and say the Earth is globular or the Earth is flat because the Quran says so. Muslims who understand the Quran and understand the Arabic language and understand science understand what the Quran is talking about when the Quran talks to people and saying that it is a gift from God that I made the earth easy for you to live on. It's a gift from God that made the earth spread out. It's still a gift from God that made mountains like pillars or like pegs. It is a gift from God that you have a sun that goes in a calculated way with the moon. It is, however, something very interesting to find an ayah that is talking about the diameters of Earth and the universe, and another ayah that talks about the sun moving in an orbit. It's not saying swimming, meaning it swims in water. It says it is floating in its orbit. It's not saying the word swim or yasbah does not necessarily mean swimming in water. It does speak about the sun and the moon and other celestial objects moving. It does not speak about the earth moving. But mind you, the Quran is speaking to humans living on earth from the perspective of yourself standing on earth. All right? So this is a very important thing to notice. Now, mathematically, you can model the universe fixing any point in the universe and considering the whole rest of the universe being the one that is moving with respect to that other point. So if you are standing on Earth, what the Quran is essentially saying is that versus Earth, the sun, the moon, and other celestial objects are moving. It also says that this movement of the sun, for example, will come at a stop because the whole universe will come to a stop at a point of time, because the universe is not eternally existing in the future. At the end of the day, the importance of this discussion to Christians like Howard and to Muslims who might be listening to this is that for something that is very clear in the Quran, for example, that God has created the first human and he named him Adam, and then created Eve from Adam, and then created the rest of humanity from Adam and Eve. As a Muslim, okay, if somebody tells me that some scientific theories do not like that, I will tell him the one that I believe has created the cosmos and the earth and humanity told me that he created Adam and Eve. He didn't tell me about the genetics of Adam and Eve and other parameters that you even do not know. So I believe that I would take this position religiously because, in my opinion, there is unequivocal statements in the Quran, for example, about Adam and Eve. Okay? But is there unequivocal statements in the Quran about the shape of the earth? No. The ayat of the Quran can be, from a linguistic perspective, be seen that the earth is spread out. This is obviously how we observe it in our daily life. But there are also other ayat that talk about an earth that can be interpreted as being in the shape of a globe, and a universe that is either toroidal or spherical. So the point at the end of the day, the important point, and the reason that I found that this is a discussion that I would like to go through, is a risk that people who believe in God, whether Christians, Jews, or Muslims, okay, do not put your faith under the risk of losing your faith because you would take a position based on religious reasons, while your religion, while your sacred scripture is not taking this position unequivocally. It is the case. I'm not a Bible scholar, but I have talked to very prominent Christian scientists who believe in the Bible and who believe that science has something to offer to humanity. And they do not see that the Bible is advocating a flat earth. The Quran does not talk about the firmament. Firmament is an English word. The Quran talks about the sky as a protected ceiling. And there is scientific evidence that the atmosphere protects us from meteorites, but also that the magnetic field of Earth, for example, protects the atmosphere, and that the moon protects the atmosphere, and that Jupiter's and the asteroid belt protect the planet Earth. So it is a protected ceiling. And this is consistent with science. At the end of the day, I would call out other believers in the sacred scriptures that came from Allah, the Torah, the Gospels, and the Quran, to not put their religion at risk by taking scientific positions unless there is unequivocal statements in their religion that is from the word of God, not from the word of somebody who is a scholar or somebody in the church or somebody in the synagogue. Not an opinion. And only in this case, you can take a religious position. It is not the case for globe Earth. Thank you. Or flat Earth.
And there we go, guys. Thank you so much for that. Listen, that's the end of the debate. I certainly haven't got a clue who won or who lost or anything like that, because I haven't got a clue what the Quran says, so I just don't know. But what I do want to do is thank you so much for being so civil and polite with each other. It's been an absolute pleasure to listen to that, and I'm sure the comments on the YouTube video will enlighten me into who's won and lost. Please feel free to take this video, mirror it on your own channels, edit it into bits on your own channels, do whatever you want with it on your own channels. I don't do many debates on this channel, but I am toying with the idea of doing one every 6 or 7 weeks or so. So you're both more than welcome back at any point if you want to do another one. All I'm going to do now is just allow you to shill your own channels out one more time. tell people your links are in the description, but tell people what you're about. And then I'll thank everyone in the chat for watching, and we'll bob off. So, Howard, do you want to shield your channel out one last time?
Would you like to go first, Ahmed?
No.
Yeah.
Just saying, do you want to? Okay, Ahmed, do you want to shield your channel out? Yeah.
So, Finding Truth is about faith, science, and happiness. And I speak about faith in general. I speak about the existence of God, evidence for the existence of God, and how science points to the existence of God, and how Holy Scripture is never in contradiction with science. In this case, I mean by Holy Scripture, the Quran. And actually, the Quran in many places talks about the Torah and the Gospels. I also have issues, philosophical issues, things like whether we have free will or not, from the philosophical and the scientific aspects. I talk a lot about evolution and creation, and I have a specific position on that. God has created the universe. He has guided life. Nothing happens autonomously in this universe. Two series that are being broadcasted now. I had a little break for the series with Dr. Fazrana. It's called Seeing God in Biology, and it addresses genetics, microbiology, and biochemistry, and showing how through genetics and biochemistry, it is very obvious that life is designed. And this is a great one, and it's going to resume in August. A new series that is coming up soon is called Islam and Natural Philosophy, and it addresses a subject called Daqiq al-Kalam, which is a jewel of what can be taken in contrast to Greek philosophy, which is called Islamic Kalam. It is the Islamic version of philosophy. It is philosophy enlightened by revelation. And Daqiq al-Kalam is the part of that philosophy that addresses topics that are today studied under relativity and quantum mechanics. It's a very amazing and exciting thing. And this I'm doing in collaboration with a Muslim physicist. And it's coming soon in August also. So those are two things. Apart from that, I do debates, interviews. I have my own short and long episodes. And I actually have a course about evolution for those who asked about evolution and ERVs. I stopped it because I wanted to do the series with Dr. Fazrana, but it is at episode 8. And I also have a website where you can actually check out the series. It addresses very deep issues in genetics and microbiology. And of course, I'm an engineer, so I'm addressing them from engineering perspective. And I like making comparisons between how biological systems work and how electronic and information systems work, to show that biological systems have great similarity with information systems and computer systems. Since computer systems are designed, I don't find any reason for somebody to believe that life is an accident or that it evolved out of its own merely through the laws of nature. So I hope that was not a very long promo.
No. Well, if that sounds up your cup of tea, up your cup of tea. That's not right, is it? If that sounds like your cup of tea or up your avenue or whatever, link is in the description. Thank you for that, and thanks for coming on and being so civil and polite. Really appreciate it. Howard, if you want to tell us what you're about, your channel's linked in the description.
Thank you. I was member of the largest cult in the world, the Freemasons, for 3 years. I was indoctrinated to believe that that was the correct path to learn more about spirituality without the dogma. I was wrong, and I hold my hand up, and I'm trying to make up for my mistakes by exposing the different fields of indoctrination through propaganda, and also just mind control in general. We're all subjected to marketing, so we should all accept that all of our thoughts are inspired, and very rarely will we have an original thought. So I tackle mind control, propaganda, indoctrination, and ways to spot it and hopefully get free of it. I look at the globe skepticism and space exploration skepticism, using different primary observations and experiments that we can and should reproduce for ourselves. And I also like to promote the field of research known as biogeology, which is that many rock formations display characteristics that correlate with anatomy. Hence why I mentioned that pebbles found on the coast and also in dry riverbeds, and even pebbles that you'll find, smooth stones, pebbles that you'll find digging in your garden, have got many correlations with anatomy of organs. So it looks like pebbles are petrified organs from a worldwide flood, and it looks like many mountains either petrified remains of giant trees, as spoken about in the Quran and the Bible, and over 500 myths that talk about worldwide floods could also explain why some mountains look like giants and even titans that the fallen angels supposedly helped design, not part of the original creation. So as out there as it sounds, I recommend that anyone that's interested in looking into an alternative style of geology looks at my playlist Biogeology, which, as I say, goes into giants, titans, and all sorts of creatures that would have got petrified in a worldwide flood. I recommend people that are interested in secret societies, mind control, and hypnotism look at my playlist of misconceptions and activism against geoengineering and stuff, because we're brainwashed to believe that carbon is the only thing we should worry about while we're being sprayed with toxins to supposedly combat climate change, which go into our food, our water, and into our lungs. And mainly the globe lie skepticism is justified by lots of research experiments and conundrums that are pointed out in my playlist against globe lie. So thank you very much for having me, and thank you, Ahmed, for being so civil. And I would maybe love to take you up on the offer, Al, and come back to debate Ahmed again. Thank you.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I will say goodbye to you both properly off air, but for now, I just want to thank everybody in the chat. I mean, there's too many people who are regulars here to thank by name, who, like, you know, they've been really supportive with the channel since it started, but you know who you are, and there's loads of you in the chat, so thank you so much for that. I'm going to say goodbye. I'll be back tomorrow with a video, which is a video about the stories that I have chosen not to tell because they were just a little bit too shocking or a little bit too sad. So I've made a little montage of those, put them all in one video, something slightly different tomorrow. But anyway, that'll be out tomorrow if I can make it in the morning, which I will. But thank you for watching. I'll say goodbye to you two in a second offline, but everybody else, bye-bye.
الله الذي رفع السماوات بغير عمد ترونها ثم استوى على العرش وسخر الشمس والقمر كل يجري لأجل مسمى يدبر الأمر يفصل الآيات لعلكم بلقاء ربكم توقنون